billion-dollar lesson is slow success builds character, and fast success builds ego in a man. You need to understand in business that a small profit is always better than a big loss. I didn't become a billionaire until I was 56 years old, but at 93, I'm worth over 130 billion. That should be testament that people do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures within due time.
That's my philosophy, is that I got this money not because I'm a superior human being, not because I've done more for society than other people. I was wired the right way to be dropped into the United States at this particular time. I mean, it's a huge capitalistic society, and I'm wired, no credit to me, but I'm just born that way, so that I'm better at asset allocation than other people to some degree. Just like other people are better at all kinds of other things. And I was with two teachers out at Sun Valley that are doing more for society than I am, and this market system does nothing for them. Market system does all kinds of things for me. Gates says if I'd been born 5,000 years ago, I'd have been some animal's lunch, because I can't run very fast, can't climb trees. I mean, and I could tell that animal was chasing me, wait till we see how I can allocate assets, But it wouldn't have made any difference.
You don't need to be a genius in what I do. That's the good thing about it. I am in a game. You don't really need brains. You need the right orientation. 90% of the people that buy stocks don't think of them the right way. They hope it goes up next week. And if it's down, they feel worse. I feel better. I think about what the company's going to be worth 10 or 20 years from now. And I hope it goes down when I buy it, because I'll buy more.
Defining your circle of competence is the most important aspect of investing. It's not how important, how large your circle is. You don't have to be an expert on everything. But knowing where the perimeter of that circle of what you know and what you don't know is, and staying inside of it, is all important. Tom Watson Sr., who started IBM, said in his book, he said, I'm no genius, he said, but I'm smart in spots, and I stay around those spots. And, that is the key. So if I understand a few things, and I stick in that arena, I'll do okay. And if I don't understand something, but I get all excited about it because my neighbors are talking about it, stocks are going up and everything, they start fooling around someplace else, eventually I'll get cream. And
if you were starting out again today, what would you do to replicate your success?
I would start going right through companies, and I probably would focus on smaller companies because I would be working with smaller sums, and there's more chance that something is overlooked in that arena. But that's the only way to do it. I mean, you have to buy businesses or little pieces of businesses called stocks, and you have to buy them at attractive prices, and you have to buy into good businesses. And that advice will be the same 100 years from now in terms of investing. That's what it's all about. And you can't expect anybody else to do it for you. People will not tell you about wonderful little investments. It's not the way the investment business is set up. You've got to learn what you know and what you don't know, and within the arena of what you know, you have to pursue it very vigorously and act on it when you find it. And you can't look around for people to agree with you. You can't look around for people to even know what you're talking about. You have to think for yourself. And if you do, you'll find things.
If you make money with money, you get taxed at very low rates, 15% dividends and capital gains, no payroll tax. If you make money with muscle or hard work or sweat of your brow, you get taxed at rates that move on up. And most of the people, the middle class, gets taxed rates of either 15 or 25 on their income tax, but then they get really hit hard on the payroll tax, and that's what brings the rates in our office up to an average of 36% if you leave me out. I've really never been much for beating myself up over mistakes or anything of the sort. There's nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can change is the future. And I'm in a business where I'm going to make plenty of mistakes. And that just comes with the territory. And if you're emotional about investments, you're not going to do well. I mean, facts are facts and reason is reason. And you can develop all these attachments or angers or whatever about your stock. I mean, you may love the ones that go up and hate the ones that go. That's crazy. I mean, the stock doesn't know you own it. You may have all these feelings about the stock. The stock has no feelings about you. It's going to reflect what the company behind the stock does.
You will see things you won't believe in your lifetime, and securities markets. And the country will do very well over time, but you will see these huge waves. And if you can stay objective throughout that, if you can detach yourself temperamentally from the crowd, you get very rich. And you won't have to be very bright. I mean, I'm sure you are, but you want, it doesn't take brains, it takes temperament. You just have to sit and think objectively and think about, would I buy this whole business? If it's an internet company, it's got 100 million shares out and selling at 100, that's $10 billion. Is it worth $10 billion? If it's worth $10 billion, it's got to be able to give you, 700 or 800 million next year. And if it doesn't give you 700 or 800 million next year, it has to give you maybe 10% more than that the year after and continue to. There aren't a lot of businesses that can do that. And people just go crazy. It's pretty simple in my case. It's not IQ. I'm sure you'll all be glad to hear that. But everybody in this room has more IQ than they need to do my job. The big thing is rationality. And in other words, I always look at IQ and talent as sort of representing the horsepower of the motor, but then in terms of the output, the efficiency with which the motor works, that depends on rationality, because a lot of people start out with 400 horsepower motors and get 100 horsepower of output, and it's way better to have a 200 horsepower motor and get it all into output. And so why do smart people do things that interfere with really getting the output they're entitled to? And it gets into habits, into character, into temperament, and it really gets into behaving in a rational manner. It's not getting in your own way. As I say, everybody here has the ability absolutely to do anything I do and much beyond. And some of you will and some of you won't. But it will, the ones that won't, it will be because you get in your own way. It won't because the world doesn't allow you to. It will be because you don't allow yourself to. So I have one little suggestion for you. Pick out the person in the class that you admire the most, and then write down why you admire them. Put down a list of qualities. You're not to name yourself in this. And then put down the one that frankly you can stand the least in the whole group. And put down the qualities that turn you off in that person, and look at that list, and you won't find it's a bunch of things like throwing a football 70 yards or anything of the sort. The qualities of the first one that you admire are qualities that you, with a little practice, can make your own, and which, if practiced, will become habit forming. The chains of habit are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken. I mean, my age, I can't change any of my habits. I mean, I'm stuck. But at your age, you will have the habits 20 years from now that you decide to put into practice today. So I just suggest that you look at the habits you admire in others, or the behavior you admire in others, and make those your own habits, and you look at what you really find somewhat reprehensible in others, and just decide, those are things you're not going to do. Ben Franklin did that a few hundred years ago, and it still works today. And if you do that, you'll find that you convert all your horsepower into output. So
you talk about prodigy, what it takes to extend the boundaries of physics. Neither of us has it. We have learned how to outperform people who are a lot smarter.
Yeah, we can't play top-notch chess.
No, we can't.
No. But we know how to do what we do.
But the other great secret is that we're good at lifelong learning. Warren is so much better in some ways in his 70s and 80s than he was younger that it's almost awesome. If you keep learning all the time, you have a huge advantage. And we both just like it.
And we have a wonderful group of friends. Really wonderful.
From whom we can learn a lot.
Yeah.
You are not going to get very far in life based on what you already know. I constantly see people rise in life who were not the smartest, sometimes not even the most diligent, but they are learning machines. They go to bed every night a little wiser than they were when they got up. And boy, does that habit help, particularly when you have a long run ahead of you.
Cash is always a bad investment. I mean, when people said cash is king a year ago, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, cash wasn't producing anything, and it was sure to go down in value over time. On the other hand, you always want to be sure you have enough. I mean, it's like oxygen. You want to be sure it's around, but you don't need to have excessive amounts of it around. And cash, we will always have enough cash around. But anytime we have surplus cash around, I'm unhappy. I mean, I would much rather have good businesses than cash.
And it is a hedge against the dollar?
Well, you can say all assets are a hedge against the dollar. I mean, but all you know is that the dollar is going to be worth less 10, 20, 30 years from now. I say worth less, not worthless.
Right.
You want to watch that. But it will be, and that's true of almost every currency that I can think of. The question is how much it depreciates in value. But cash is not a place that.
Now, why is that?
Well,
the dollar is going to be worth less.
Because we'll print more of them in relation to the amount of goods that are moving. If we dropped $1 million of cash into every household in the United States today, everybody would feel very good, except the people that invested in things that were denominated in dollars. And,
Exactly.
There will be no tendency toward deflation in this country over time.